The rain fell in sheets against the pavement, each drop hitting the concrete like tiny bullets. I didn't care that I was soaked through, that my silk dress clung to my body like a second skin, or that my bare feet were bleeding from running through the streets of Chicago's South Side. All I cared about was getting away, far away from him, far away from what he'd done, my brother, my own flesh and blood. The digital clock on the bank building across the street blinked 3:29 in the morning as I collapsed against the brick wall of an alley, my legs finally giving out. Sobs tore from my throat, raw and ugly, the kind that came from somewhere deep in your soul where the worst kind of pain lived. I pressed my hands against my face, mascara and tears mixing on my palms, and tried to breathe, just breathe, but every breath felt like swallowing broken glass. That's when I heard the footsteps, heavy, deliberate, the kind that belonged to someone who owned the ground they walked on. My head snapped up, and through the rain and the darkness I saw him, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. His dark hair was slicked back, and even in the dim light of the alley, I could see the sharp angles of his face, the kind of handsome that was almost cruel in its perfection. But it was his eyes that froze me in place. Dark, calculating, dangerous. I knew exactly who he was. Everyone in Chicago knew who Dante Moretti was. He was the king of the South Side, the man my brother Marco had been trying to destroy for the past 3 years, the enemy, the rival, the monster in all of Marco's stories. And I had just stumbled into his territory at 3:29 in the morning, looking like a drowned rat and crying my eyes out. Well, his voice was deep, smooth like aged whiskey, with just a hint of an Italian accent that his years in America hadn't quite erased. What do we have here? I scrambled to my feet, ignoring the sharp pain in my heels where the skin had torn, my back pressed against the brick wall, and I tried to make myself smaller, invisible, but his eyes were already locked on mine, and I had the distinct feeling that nothing escaped Dante Moretti's notice. "I'm sorry," I managed to choke out, my voice hoarse from crying. "I didn't mean to. I'll go. I'll leave right now." He took a step closer, and I noticed 2 men emerge from the shadows behind him. Bodyguards. Of course. Men like Dante Moretti didn't walk around alone, even in their own territory. "You're bleeding," he observed, his eyes dropping to my feet. "It's fine," I lied, even as I felt warm blood mixing with the cold rainwater between my toes. "It's not fine," he countered, pulling off his suit jacket. Before I could protest, he draped it over my shoulders. It was warm from his body heat and smelled like expensive cologne and something else, something uniquely him. "I know who you are," he said quietly, studying my face with an intensity that made me want to look away, but I couldn't. His gaze held mine like a physical force. My heart stopped. "You do?" "Isabella Russo, Marco Russo's little sister." His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I've seen your picture on his desk during our negotiations, though you look different when you're not smiling for the camera." Terror shot through me. If he knew who I was, if he knew I was Marco's sister, then I was as good as dead. My brother had stolen from him, threatened him, tried to undermine his business at every turn. Dante Moretti would be well within his rights, by underworld standards, to use me as leverage. Or worse. "Please," I whispered, fresh tears spilling down my cheeks. "Please just let me go. I won't tell anyone I saw you. I'll disappear. I promise." He tilted his head slightly, like a predator studying interesting prey. "Why would I let you go? You're Marco Russo's sister. You're worth more to me than gold right now." My knees buckled, but before I could fall, his hand shot out, gripping my elbow with surprising gentleness. The touch sent an unexpected jolt through me, something that wasn't entirely fear. "Steady," he murmured, and for a moment, I thought I saw something soften in his eyes, but then it was gone, replaced by that cold, calculating look. "Antonio, bring the car around." One of the bodyguards melted back into the shadows. "Where are you taking me?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. "Somewhere dry, somewhere we can talk." He studied my face again, and this time his expression definitely shifted. Concern, maybe. No, that couldn't be right. Men like Dante Moretti didn't feel concern for their enemies. "And somewhere I can have a doctor look at those feet." "I don't need a doctor." "You do, if you want to walk again without limping." His tone left no room for argument. A sleek black Mercedes pulled up at the mouth of the alley, its headlights cutting through the rain. Dante guided me toward it, his hand still on my elbow, steady and firm, but not painful. Not the grip of a captor, but something else, something I couldn't quite define. The interior of the car was warm, the leather seats soft beneath me. Dante slid in beside me, and I became acutely aware of how little my wet dress covered. how his jacket had slipped down my shoulders. I pulled it tighter around me, my fingers trembling. "Drive," Dante instructed the driver, then pressed a button that raised a privacy screen between the front and back seats. We sat in silence for a few moments. The only sound the rhythm of the windshield wipers and my own ragged breathing. I could feel him watching me, studying me like I was a puzzle he was trying to solve. "Why were you running?" he asked finally. "I can't tell you that." "Can't or won't?" "Both." I turned to look out the window, watching the city blur past. We were heading north, deeper into his territory, away from any chance of escape. "Was it Marco?" The question was quiet, almost gentle. "Did he do something to you?" My breath caught in my throat. How could he possibly know? I said nothing, but apparently my silence was answer enough. Dante's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking in his cheek. "What did he do?" "It doesn't matter. It matters to me." I whipped my head around to stare at him. "Why? Why would it possibly matter to you? I'm the enemy's sister. You should be happy if he hurt me. You should be planning how to use this against him." Something dark flashed in his eyes. "Is that what you think? That I'd be happy about a man hurting a woman? That I'd use someone's pain as a weapon? Aren't you?" He leaned back against the seat, his eyes never leaving my face. "Your brother has told you stories about me, made me into a monster in your mind. I can see it in the way you look at me, the way you flinch every time I move. Can you blame me?" "No," he admitted. "I can't. But Isabella, whatever your brother is, whatever he's told you I am, I promise you this. I have never and will never raise my hand to a woman. I don't use innocent people as pawns. And I sure as hell don't hurt women who show up in my territory at 3:29 in the morning, crying and bleeding and running from God knows what." The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. This wasn't what I expected. Dante Moretti was supposed to be cold, ruthless, a killer without conscience. That's what Marco had always said. But the man sitting beside me, looking at me with something that almost resembled compassion, didn't fit that description. "I don't understand," I whispered. "You're supposed to be the enemy. Maybe I am. To your brother." He reached out slowly, giving me plenty of time to pull away, and brushed a strand of wet hair from my face. His fingers were gentle, almost tender. "But you're not Marco, are you?" The car slowed, and I realized we'd arrived at a massive estate behind tall iron gates. The house, mansion really, was all modern lines and warm lighting, beautiful even in the rain. "This is your home?" "One of them," he replied as the car stopped under a covered portico. "You'll be safe here." "Safe," I repeated, the word feeling foreign on my tongue. "I'm a prisoner. You're a guest." He opened his door, then extended his hand to me. "One who needs medical attention and dry clothes. After that, we'll talk." I stared at his outstretched hand. This was the moment. I could refuse, could try to run again, could scream and fight and make this difficult. But my feet were throbbing. I was freezing, and despite everything, despite who he was and who I was, some instinct told me I was safer here with Dante Moretti than I'd been anywhere else in a very long time. Slowly, hesitantly, I placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong, and he helped me out of the car. The moment my feet touched the ground, I gasped in pain. Without a word, Dante bent down and swept me up into his arms, carrying me like I weighed nothing. "I can walk," I protested weakly. "Not on those feet, you can't." He carried me through double doors into a foyer that looked like something out of an architectural magazine. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that was probably worth more than my entire life, but I barely registered any of it. All I could focus on was the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath my ear, the solid warmth of his chest, the way his arms held me securely but carefully, like I was something precious, something breakable. A woman appeared from a side hallway, middle-aged with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair pulled into a neat bun. She took one look at me in Dante's arms, and her expression shifted to immediate concern. "Dr. Russo is already on his way," she said, her voice efficient but warm. "I've prepared the blue guest room. Thank you, Maria." Dante's voice softened when he spoke to her, and I realized this must be someone important to him. Not just staff, family maybe, or close to it. He carried me up a sweeping staircase and down a long hallway to a room that was bigger than my entire apartment. The bed was enormous, covered in what looked like Egyptian cotton sheets. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds, though all I could see now was rain and darkness. Dante set me down carefully on the edge of the bed, then stepped back, putting distance between us. "Maria will bring you dry clothes. The doctor will be here soon to look at your feet. There's a bathroom through that door if you want to clean up." I nodded, still not quite believing this was real, that I was sitting in Dante Moretti's mansion, being treated like a guest rather than a hostage. He moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at me. Isabella, I need you to understand something. You're safe here. Whatever happened tonight, whatever you're running from, it can't touch you here. I won't let it. Why? The question burst out of me before I could stop it. Why would you protect me? I'm Marco's sister. I'm supposed to be your enemy. His dark eyes held mine for a long moment. Because you're not crying at 3:29 in the morning in the rain because everything is fine. Because I know what it looks like when someone is running from real danger. And because no matter what your brother is, no matter what he's done, you don't deserve to be hurt. Before I could respond, he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. I sat there in stunned silence, my mind reeling. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. Dante Moretti was the villain, the monster, the man I should be terrified of. But instead, I felt something else entirely. Safe, for the first time in months, maybe years. I felt safe. Maria returned with a stack of soft clothes, pajamas that looked brand new, and a gentle smile. Let's get you out of those wet things, dear. You're shivering. She helped me peel off my ruined dress, her eyes widening slightly when she saw the bruises, old ones, yellowing at the edges, and new ones, fresh purple marks that stood out starkly against my pale skin. But she said nothing, just helped me into warm, dry pajamas, and wrapped me in a plush robe. You're a good girl, she said softly, and the unexpected kindness made fresh tears spring to my eyes. I can see it. Whatever brought you here tonight, you're safe now. Mr. Moretti, he has his reputation, but he's a good man. He'll take care of you. I don't understand why, I whispered. Maria's smile was knowing, almost maternal. Sometimes the heart knows things the mind hasn't figured out yet. Before I could ask what she meant, there was a knock at the door. The doctor arrived, an elderly man with gentle hands, who cleaned and bandaged my feet while asking no questions about how I'd gotten the injuries. He left me with pain medication and instructions to stay off my feet for a few days. After everyone left, I found myself alone in the enormous room, exhausted, but unable to sleep. My mind kept replaying the night. Marco's rage when I'd confronted him about the missing money from our mother's trust fund. The way he'd grabbed me, his fingers digging into my arms hard enough to leave marks. The vicious things he'd said, words designed to cut deep and leave scars that didn't show. And then, his ultimatum. Marry his business partner, a man twice my age with dead eyes and cruel hands. Seal the alliance. Be useful for once in my life. That's when I'd run. I must have finally dozed off because I woke to soft morning light filtering through the windows and the smell of fresh coffee. A tray sat on the bedside table with breakfast. Fluffy eggs, toast, fresh fruit, and that coffee that smelled like heaven. And beside the tray, a single white rose in a crystal vase. There was no note, but somehow I knew who it was from. I was halfway through eating when another knock came at the door. My heart jumped and I called out, "Come in." Dante entered, looking impossibly put together in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. His hair was still slightly damp, like he'd just showered, and I caught a hint of that same cologne from last night. "How are your feet?" he asked, staying near the door like he was afraid of spooking me. "Better. The doctor said they'll heal fine." He nodded, studying me with those intense dark eyes. "We need to talk about what happens next." My stomach tightened. Here it was, the catch, the price for his protection. "Marco will be looking for you," he continued. "He's probably already turned the city upside down. I received 3 calls from him this morning alone, each one more threatening than the last. He knows I'm here." Panic shot through me. "No, but he knows you're missing, and he knows you can't have gone far. He's making threats, calling in favors, trying to find you." Dante moved closer, sitting in the armchair across from the bed. "Isabella, I need to know what happened last night. All of it. If I'm going to protect you from your brother, I need to understand what I'm protecting you from." I pulled the blankets tighter around me, suddenly cold despite the warm room. "You'll just use it against him. Against me. Is that what you think this is?" His voice was quiet but intense. "Some elaborate scheme to get leverage over Marco? Isn't it?" He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his eyes never leaving mine. "Isabella, if I wanted leverage over your brother, I have a dozen other ways to get it. Cleaner ways. Ways that don't involve a terrified woman showing up in my territory in the middle of the night." He paused, something shifting in his expression. "I'm not asking you to trust me. I know that's too much. But I am asking you to let me help you." "Why?" I asked again, the question that kept haunting me. "Why do you care?" He was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was softer than I'd heard it yet. "Because I know what it's like to be trapped, to feel like the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protection from." His jaw tightened. "My father was a brutal man. He ruled our family with an iron fist. My mother, she bore the brunt of his rage for years. I was too young to stop it, too weak to protect her." I watched as pain flickered across his face, there and gone in an instant. When I finally was strong enough, when I finally took over from him, I made myself a promise. No woman would ever be hurt on my watch again. Not by me, not by anyone in my organization, and certainly not by men who hide behind family loyalty while destroying the people they're supposed to love. The raw honesty in his words cracked something open inside me. This wasn't the monster Marco had described. This was a man who understood, who knew. "He wants me to marry someone," I said quietly, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "His business partner, Tony Cicero." "Do you know him?" Dante's expression went dark. "Dangerous. I know him. He's into human trafficking, among other things. Young girls, mostly from Eastern Europe." Bile rose in my throat. "Marco knows. If he's doing business with Tony, he knows." I closed my eyes, fighting back the nausea. "He said it would be good for the family, that I needed to finally be useful. When I refused, when I said I'd never marry that monster, I couldn't finish, couldn't say out loud what my own brother had done, but I didn't need to." Dante's eyes dropped to the bruises on my arms, visible now in the morning light where the robe had slipped, his hands clenched into fists, his knuckles going white. "He put his hands on you." It wasn't a question. I nodded, tears sliding down my cheeks. "He said if I didn't agree, he'd make sure I disappeared, that he'd tell everyone I'd run off, gotten into drugs, destroyed the family reputation. No one would look for me. No one would care." "Is that when you ran?" I waited until he passed out drunk. Then I grabbed what I could and ran. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away. I looked up at him through my tears. "I didn't mean to end up in your territory. I didn't mean to bring my problems to your door." Dante stood, moving to sit on the edge of the bed. Slowly, carefully, he reached out and took my hand in his. His palm was warm, calloused, strong. "Isabella, listen to me very carefully. You are not a problem. You are a person in need of help, and I'm going to give it to you. Your brother will not touch you again. Tony Cicero will not touch you ever. You have my word. But Marco, he'll come after you. He'll use this as an excuse to escalate things between you." A grim smile touched his lips. "Let him try. Your brother has been trying to destroy me for 3 years. He's failed every time. And now," his eyes hardened, "now I have a very personal reason to make sure he never succeeds." The intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. There was something there, something beyond just protection or duty, something that made my heart race for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. "What happens now?" I asked softly. "Now you rest, heal. I have people I need to talk to, arrangements to make." He squeezed my hand gently. "And Isabella, you're not alone anymore. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." If you're enjoying this story and want to know what happens next, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the continuation. Trust me, you won't want to miss what Isabella whispers to Dante that changes everything. The next few days passed in a strange, surreal bubble. I stayed in that beautiful room, my feet healing slowly, and tried to process everything that had happened. Maria brought me meals, books, even a laptop so I could watch movies. She chatted with me about mundane things, recipes, the weather, her grandchildren, as if I were just a normal house guest and not the sister of her employer's worst enemy. Dante checked on me multiple times a day. Sometimes it was just a quick visit, asking how I was feeling if I needed anything. Other times he stayed longer, and we talked, really talked, about everything and nothing. Books we'd read, places we'd traveled, dreams we'd had before life got complicated. I learned that he loved classical music and old movies, that he'd wanted to be an architect before his father's death forced him into the family business, that he collected rare books and could quote poetry in 3 languages. And with each conversation, each small revelation, the image Marco had painted of him crumbled a little more. On the 4th night, I couldn't sleep. My feet were healed enough to walk now, and I found myself padding down the hallway in bare feet and borrowed pajamas, exploring the vast house. I found myself drawn to the sound of music, something classical and melancholy, coming from behind a partially open door. I peered inside and saw Dante sitting at a grand piano, his fingers moving across the keys with surprising grace. He was playing from memory, his eyes closed, lost in the music. The melody was beautiful and sad, full of longing, and something that felt like grief. "You can come in," he said without opening his eyes or stopping the music. "I know you're there." Heat flooded my cheeks at being caught. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you. You're not. He opened his eyes, meeting mine across the room. I'm glad you're here, actually. I've been wanting to talk to you. I entered the room, drawn by something I couldn't name. The music room was all dark wood and soft lighting, intimate despite its size. You play beautifully, I said, moving closer to the piano. My mother taught me. It was one of the few things my father allowed. He thought it made me seem cultured, refined. A bitter smile touched his lips. He never knew it was the one place I could escape him, if only in my mind. I sat down on the bench beside him, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. What were you playing? Chopin. Nocturne in C-sharp minor, my mother's favorite. His fingers drifted over the keys, picking out a few notes. She used to say that some emotions are too big for words. That's what music is for. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and I found myself studying his profile. The strong line of his jaw, the slight curl of his dark hair, the way the lamplight caught in his eyes and turned them almost amber. Marco called again today, he said quietly. He's getting desperate, making wild threats, promising retribution. My stomach clenched. I'm putting you in danger. No. He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his gaze stole my breath. Your brother put himself in danger the moment he laid hands on you, the moment he tried to sell you like property to a man like Tony Cicero. He's still my brother. Is he? Dante's voice was gentle but firm. Because brothers protect their sisters. They don't bruise them. They don't terrorize them into running through the streets at 3:29 in the morning. Hearing him say the specific time made something shift inside me. That moment felt like a lifetime ago, and just yesterday all at once. I've been thinking, I said slowly, about what you said, about facing this together. But I don't understand why you would do that, why you would risk everything for me. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then, so softly I almost didn't hear him, he said, because when I saw you in that alley, crying in the rain, looking so broken and afraid, something inside me shattered. I stared at him, my heart pounding. I've seen a lot of terrible things in my life, Isabella. Done things I'm not proud of. Built an empire on blood and fear and violence. But seeing you like that, knowing that your own brother had hurt you, had driven you to run into the night with nowhere to go, he shook his head. It reminded me of every time I couldn't protect my mother. Every time I was too small, too weak, too late. His hand found mine on the piano bench, his fingers threading through mine. But I'm not small anymore. I'm not weak. And this time, I'm not too late. His eyes held mine with an intensity that made my whole body warm. I can protect you. I can keep you safe. And I will, for as long as you'll let me. Dante, I whispered, his name feeling strange and right on my lips. You don't have to say anything, he said quickly. I know this is complicated. I know I'm probably the last person you should trust. But I need you to know that what I feel, this isn't about your brother. This isn't about our rivalry or business or any of that. This is about you. My breath caught. What do you feel? His free hand came up to cup my cheek, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone with heartbreaking gentleness. Something I swore I'd never let myself feel. Something dangerous and foolish and completely beyond my control. I leaned into his touch, my eyes fluttering closed. This is crazy. We barely know each other. I know. His voice was rough, strained. Believe me. I know. But crazy doesn't make it less real. When I opened my eyes, he was closer, his face just inches from mine. I could feel his breath, warm against my lips, could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, the slight stubble on his jaw, the way he was looking at me like I was something precious and terrifying all at once. Tell me to stop, he murmured. Tell me to walk away, and I will. I'll still protect you, still keep you safe. But tell me now, because if I kiss you, Isabella, everything changes. I should have said stop, should have been smart, logical, cautious. But instead, I heard myself whisper, don't stop. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, like he was afraid I might break. His lips were soft against mine, tasting of whiskey and something darker, something uniquely him. But then I made a small sound in the back of my throat, and something unleashed in both of us. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back as the kiss deepened, became hungry, desperate. My hands found his shoulders, feeling the solid muscle beneath his shirt, and I pulled him closer, needing more, needing all of him. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. Isabella, he breathed, and my name had never sounded like that before, like a prayer, like a promise, like everything. I know, I whispered back, because I did. I knew this was insane. I knew we were from different worlds, that my brother was his enemy, that this could never work. But I also knew that in his arms, I felt safer than I'd ever felt in my life, that when he looked at me, I felt seen in a way no one had ever seen me before. We stayed like that for a long moment, just breathing together, his hand still tangled in my hair, mine still gripping his shoulders like he was my anchor in a storm. "There's something I need to tell you," I said finally, pulling back enough to meet his eyes. "About Marco, about why he really wants me to marry Tony." Dante's expression grew serious. "What is it?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I overheard them talking. Marco and Tony. They were planning something big, something they said would take you down once and for all. They need capital. A lot of it. Tony has the money, but he wants something in return." I swallowed hard. "Me, but not just as a wife, as insurance." "Insurance?" "I have access to something they want. Information about my father's old business dealings, offshore accounts, international contacts, things that died with him, but that I know how to access." I looked down at our joined hands. "My father wasn't a good man, Dante. He was involved in things, illegal things. Before he died, he made me memorize everything, just in case. Said it was my insurance policy if anything ever happened to him." Dante's jaw tightened. "And Marco knows this. He's known for months. That's why he's been keeping me close, limiting my freedom. He was planning to force me to give him the information, then marry me off to Tony to seal their alliance. 2 birds with 1 stone." "Does this information include details about my operations?" I met his eyes steadily. "Some. My father did business with your father, years ago. There are records, transactions, things that could be used as leverage if someone wanted to hurt you." I waited for the anger, the accusation, the demand that I handed all over. But instead, Dante just studied me quietly. "You could have told Marco everything, could have used it to buy your freedom." "I would never," I said fiercely. "Whatever's in those records, whatever my father did, it's not my truth to tell. And after the last few days, after getting to know you," I squeezed his hand, "I know Marco lied about you, about who you really are. I won't betray you." Something in his expression softened, and he pulled me into his arms, holding me close. I could feel his heart beating against my cheek, strong and steady. "Do you trust me?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I realized, and I did, completely. "Then we're going to end this, together." He pulled back to look at me. "But first I need to know, this information, where is it?" "In my head, all of it. My father made me memorize everything before he destroyed the physical records. He said memory was the only safe place, because no one could steal it without my permission." Dante nodded slowly. Smart man, in his own twisted way. "So what do we do?" A dangerous smile crossed his face. "We use it, but not the way Marco expects." Over the next week, Dante laid out his plan. It was risky, possibly insane, but it might just work. We would arrange a meeting, ostensibly to negotiate my return to Marco's custody. But instead of giving in to his demands, we would expose him, Tony, and their entire operation. The information in my head wasn't just damaging to Dante, it revealed a network of corruption that stretched into law enforcement, politics, and legitimate business. Enough to bring down not just Marco and Tony, but dozens of others. "Are you sure about this?" Dante asked me the night before the meeting. We were in his study, going over the details one more time. "Once we do this, there's no going back. Your brother will never forgive you." I thought about Marco, about the man he used to be, before greed and ambition poisoned him, about the boy who used to protect me from bullies at school, who taught me to ride a bike, who promised to always look out for me. But that boy was gone. The man who'd grabbed me, bruised me, tried to sell me to a monster. That wasn't my brother anymore. Maybe he never really had been. "I'm sure," I said firmly. "He made his choice when he put his hands on me, when he chose money over family." Dante pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "After tomorrow, you'll be free, really free. You can go anywhere, do anything, start fresh." Something in his tone made me pull back to look at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that you don't have to stay here. Once Marco is dealt with, once you're safe, you don't owe me anything." His voice was carefully neutral, but I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands clenched at his sides. "You can have a normal life, away from all of this. Is that what you want?" I asked quietly. "For me to leave?" "What I want," he said roughly, "and what's best for you are 2 very different things." I stepped closer, placing my hand over his heart. "What if what's best for me is staying here, with you?" His hand covered mine, pressing it firmly against his chest. "Isabella, you barely know me, what you've seen here. This isn't my whole life. There's blood on my hands, sins that can't be washed away. I don't care. You should." But even as he said it, his other arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me against him. "You should run as far from me as possible." "Too late for that," I whispered, standing on my toes to brush my lips against his. I think I fell for you somewhere between 3:29 in the morning and now. The kiss that followed was fierce, desperate, full of everything we couldn't say out loud. All the fear, the longing, the impossible hope that somehow, against all odds, this could work. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. After tomorrow, we'll figure this out. Whatever you want, wherever you want to go, I'll make it happen. I want to stay, I said firmly, here, with you. Even knowing what I am, what I do, I know who you are, Dante. I've seen it. You're not the monster Marco painted you as. You're the man who pulled me out of the rain, who gave me shelter when I had nowhere to go, who held me when I cried, and made me feel safe for the first time in years. I cupped his face in my hands. That's the man I'm choosing. His eyes closed, and I saw something that might have been tears glinting on his lashes. You're going to destroy me, he whispered. You know that, right? Only if you let me. He laughed, a broken, beautiful sound, and pulled me close again. We stood like that for a long time, just holding each other, gathering strength for what tomorrow would bring. The meeting was set for midnight at a neutral location, an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town that straddled the border between Dante's territory and Marco's. Neutral ground, supposedly, though I knew Dante had people stationed all around the building. I rode in the car with him, my hand clasped tightly in his. I was wearing a wire, tiny and nearly invisible, recording everything for the federal agents Dante had brought in on the operation. It turned out that the information in my head was enough to interest the FBI, especially when combined with Dante's own testimony and evidence. Ready? He asked as the car stopped. As I'll ever be. He kissed me once, hard and fast. Stay close to me. Don't let Marco touch you. And if anything goes wrong, you run. Understand? I understand. The warehouse was cold and drafty, lit by portable lights that created harsh shadows. Marco was already there, along with Tony and a handful of their men. My brother looked haggard, older than his 35 years, his eyes bloodshot and his suit rumpled. Isabella, he said, his voice a mixture of relief and anger. Thank God. Come here. Come to me. I stayed at Dante's side, my hand still in his. Marco's eyes narrowed. What's this? You're with him now? This animal who kidnapped you? He didn't kidnap me, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I came to him for help, because I was running from you. Don't be ridiculous. I'm your brother, your family. Whatever he's told you, whatever he's done to confuse you, it's all lies. Like you lied when you said you'd take care of me after Dad died? I challenged. Like you lied when you drained Mom's trust fund. Like you lied when you said marrying Tony would be good for the family? Tony stepped forward, his dead eyes fixing on me with something that made my skin crawl. The little bitch has teeth. I like that. Makes breaking her more fun. Dante's hand tightened on mine, his whole body going rigid. When he spoke, his voice was deadly calm. Touch her, and you won't leave this warehouse alive. Tony laughed. Big words from a man who's outnumbered. Am I? Dante raised his free hand, and suddenly, the warehouse was flooded with light. Men emerged from the shadows. Dante's men, along with at least a dozen agents and FBI windbreakers. I don't think so. Marco's face went white. What is this? This is the end, I said quietly. For you, for Tony, for everyone who thought they could use me. You bitch, Marco snarled, lunging toward me. But Dante was faster. He stepped between us, his fist connecting with Marco's jaw in a sickening crunch. My brother went down hard, blood streaming from his nose. I warned you, Dante said coldly. I told you no one would hurt her again. As federal agents swarmed forward, reading Marco and Tony their rights, as the whole operation unfolded exactly as Dante had planned, I felt a weight lift from my chest. It was over, really over. Marco was screaming as they hauled him away, cursing me, cursing Dante, threatening everything and nothing. But his words had no power anymore. He was just a man who'd made bad choices and would now face the consequences. Tony went quietly, his dead eyes finding me one last time. This isn't over, he said softly. Yes, I replied. It is. In the aftermath, as agents processed the scene and took statements, Dante pulled me aside. We stood in the shadows at the edge of the warehouse, and he pulled me into his arms. It's done, he murmured into my hair. You're free. I pulled back to look at him. What about you? What happens now? The deal I made with the FBI covers me for testimony against Marco and Tony. My past stays in the past, as long as I keep my nose clean going forward. A wry smile touched his lips. Looks like I'm going legitimate. Can you do that? Just walk away from everything? For you? His hand came up to cup my cheek. I'd do anything. We drove back to his mansion as dawn was breaking, the sky painted in shades of pink and gold. I was exhausted but wired, my mind still processing everything that had happened. In his bedroom, the first time I'd been in his private space, he helped me out of my coat. His hands were gentle, reverent almost, as they moved over me. "Isabella," he said softly, "there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" He took my hands in his, meeting my eyes with an intensity that stole my breath. "When I found you in that alley at 3:29 in the morning, I told myself I was just being practical, that protecting you was good strategy, a way to get leverage over Marco. And I was lying to myself." His thumb brushed across my knuckles. "The truth is, from the moment I saw you crying in the rain, something inside me broke open, something I'd kept locked away for years, the ability to care, to feel, to love." My heart stopped. "Love? I know it's too fast. I know it's crazy. We've only known each other a week. But Isabella, I have never felt for anyone what I feel for you. You walked into my life in the middle of the night, broken and afraid, and somehow you put me back together." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "I love you too," I whispered. "I think I have since that first night, since you wrapped your jacket around me and looked at me like I mattered." He pulled me close, and his kiss was soft, sweet, full of promise. When we broke apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. "Stay with me," he murmured, "not as a guest, not as someone I'm protecting, but as the woman I love, the woman I want to spend every day for the rest of my life with." "Yes," I breathed. "Yes, I'll stay." We stood there in the growing light of dawn, holding each other, two broken people who'd found wholeness in the most unexpected place, in each other's arms. Later, much later, when we were lying in his bed, my head on his chest and his fingers trailing through my hair, I remembered something. "Dante, that night, when you found me, you said I whispered something that shattered you, but I don't remember saying anything." He was quiet for a moment, his hand stilling in my hair. "You did. When I asked who hurt you, when I asked what happened, what did I say?" His arms tightened around me. "You looked up at me with those broken, beautiful eyes, and you whispered, 'Please don't let me go back there. Please don't make me go back.'" His voice grew rough with emotion, and in that moment, I knew I never would. That I'd burn the whole city down before I let anyone hurt you again. Fresh tears spilled down my cheeks. "I don't remember saying that. I know. You were in shock, traumatized, running on pure adrenaline, but I heard it, and it destroyed me, because I knew what it felt like to beg for protection and have no one answer." He tilted my face up to his. "So I made you a promise, right there in that alley, even if you didn't hear it. I promised I would protect you, that you would never have to beg again, and you kept that promise. I always will." He kissed me softly. "For the rest of our lives, Isabella, you're safe, you're loved, you're home." And lying there in his arms, listening to his heartbeat steady and strong beneath my ear, I knew it was true. After years of feeling lost and alone, I'd finally found where I belonged, not in spite of that desperate night at 3:29 in the morning, but because of it. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us exactly where we need to be. 3 months later, I stood in front of the mirror in what was now our bedroom, adjusting the simple white dress I'd chosen. Nothing elaborate, nothing fancy, just a beautiful dress for a beautiful day. "You look perfect," Maria said from the doorway, her eyes misty. She'd become like a mother to me over the past months, teaching me Italian recipes and telling me stories about Dante's childhood. "He's going to cry when he sees you," I laughed. "Dante doesn't cry." "Oh, honey, you'd be surprised." She came forward to adjust my veil. "I've known that boy since he was in diapers. I've seen him handle a gun, negotiate with killers, run an empire without breaking a sweat. But you undo him completely." A knock at the door announced it was time. My heart raced as Maria handed me my bouquet. Simple white roses, just like the one Dante had left me that first morning. The ceremony was small, just a handful of people in the garden of the mansion. The same garden where I'd first started to feel safe, to feel hope. As I walked down the makeshift aisle, I saw Dante waiting for me, looking impossibly handsome in a dark suit, his eyes locked on mine. And yes, Maria was right. There were tears on his cheeks. When I reached him, he took my hands in his, and his smile was like the sun coming out. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," he whispered. "You're crying," I whispered back. "I know, don't get used to it." But I had a feeling I would, that this strong, dangerous man would show me his soft heart again and again for the rest of our lives, before we've enjoyed this story together. If you loved watching Isabella and Dante's journey from that rainy night at 3:29 to this moment, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There are so many more stories to come. and I'd love to have you along for the ride." The judge, a kindly older man who'd been Dante's family lawyer for decades, performed the ceremony. When he pronounced us husband and wife, Dante pulled me close and kissed me with a passion that made several people chuckle. "I love you," he murmured against my lips. "My brave, beautiful wife." "I love you too," I replied. "My protector, my home." The reception was just as intimate, held on the patio overlooking the grounds. As we danced our first dance as husband and wife, I looked up at the man who'd saved me, and who I'd saved in return. "Who would have thought," I said softly, "that the worst night of my life would lead to the best thing that ever happened to me? Fate works in mysterious ways." He spun me gently, though I prefer to think it was destiny. "You were always meant to stumble into my territory. I was always meant to find you." At 3:29 in the morning, he agreed, smiling. The exact moment my life changed forever. As the sun set over the garden, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I leaned against my husband's chest and thought about the journey that had brought us here. The fear, the pain, the desperate run through rain-soaked streets. The moment our eyes had met in that alley, two souls recognizing each other in the darkness. "What are you thinking about?" Dante asked, his arms wrapped securely around me. "About that night, about how terrified I was, how lost I felt. And now?" I tilted my head back to look at him. "Now I'm found. Now I'm home." He kissed me again, soft and sweet, a promise of forever. Around us, our small group of loved ones celebrated, but I barely noticed. All I could focus on was this moment, this man, this love that had grown from the ashes of my old life. "I have something for you," Dante said suddenly, pulling back. He reached into his jacket and withdrew a small velvet box, a wedding gift. I opened it carefully. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet with a single charm, a clock face, frozen at 3:29. "So you never forget," he said softly. "The moment everything changed. The moment you ran into my life and refused to leave." Tears blurred my vision as he fastened the bracelet around my wrist. "It's perfect. You're perfect." He kissed my temple. "And you're mine, forever." "Forever," I agreed. As the evening wore on and the stars came out, I found myself standing at the edge of the patio, looking out over the grounds. This place that had once seemed like a gilded cage had become my sanctuary, my home, the place where I'd found not just safety, but love. Dante came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist and resting his chin on my shoulder. "Happy? Happier than I ever thought possible." "Good." His arms tightened. "Because I plan to spend the rest of my life making sure you stay that way." I turned in his arms, looping mine around his neck. "You know what the funny thing is? Marco wanted to use me to destroy you, but instead, I became the reason you changed, the reason you left that life behind. You didn't just change me, Isabella. You saved me." His eyes were serious, intense. I was going down a dark path, becoming the monster everyone said I was. But then you appeared, crying in my alley at 3:29 in the morning, and you reminded me that there was still good in the world, still something worth protecting. "I love you," I whispered, pulling him down for a kiss. "I love you more," he murmured against my lips. "Not possible." "Want to bet?" I laughed, the sound light and free, and let him sweep me into another kiss. Around us, the party continued, but we were lost in our own world, a world built on the ruins of our pasts, on second chances and unlikely love. Later that night, after our guests had gone and we were finally alone, I stood on the balcony of our bedroom, looking up at the stars. Dante came up behind me, wrapping a blanket around both of us against the chill. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how sometimes the universe works in strange ways, about how the worst moments can lead to the best things, about how I wouldn't change anything, not even the pain, because it led me to you." He turned me to face him, his hands framing my face. "Isabella Moretti," he said, my new name sounding perfect on his lips. "I promise you this, every day for the rest of our lives. I will make sure you know how loved you are, how precious you are to me. You will never cry alone in the rain again." "I know." I pressed my hand over his heart. "Because I have you. Always." We stood there under the stars, holding each other. Two people who'd found love in the most unexpected place, who'd turned pain into power, fear into courage, and darkness into light. And as I drifted off to sleep that night in my husband's arms, I thought about that terrified girl running through the streets at 3:29 in the morning. How lost she'd been, how broken, how sure she was that things would never get better. If only she could see me now, safe, loved, home. All because she'd stumbled into the right territory at exactly the right time. All because a dangerous man had seen past her tears to the strength beneath. All because she'd whispered those desperate words. Please don't let me go back there. And he'd heard them not as weakness, but as a call he couldn't ignore. Dante stirred beside me, pulling me closer even in sleep, and I smiled. This was my life now, this beautiful, unexpected, perfect life. And it had all started at 3:29 in the morning, when everything fell apart so it could come together in a way I never could have imagined. Sometimes the end of one story is just the beginning of another, and our story was just beginning. The rain fell gently against the windows as I settled deeper into Dante's embrace, the sound no longer frightening but soothing, a reminder of where we'd been and how far we'd come. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, murmuring something in Italian that sounded like a prayer of thanks. I love you, I whispered into the darkness. I love you more, he replied, his voice heavy with sleep but full of certainty. Always and forever, from 3:29 in the morning until the end of time, and wrapped in his arms, safe and loved and home at last. I believed him, because Dante Moretti was a man of his word, the man who'd pulled me from the rain, the man who'd seen me at my lowest and loved me anyway, the man who'd promised to protect me, and had kept that promise every single day since. My husband, my protector, my home, my forever. As sleep finally claimed me, my last thought was of gratitude, for wrong turns that led to right places, for desperate moments that became beautiful beginnings, for the man who'd found me crying at 3:29 in the morning and had refused to let me face another moment alone. Some people believe in fate, others believe in choice, but I believed in both. In the choice Dante had made to help me when he could have walked away, in the choice I'd made to trust him when everything told me not to, and in the fate that had brought us together against all odds, at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right place. 3:29 in the morning, the moment my old life ended and my new one began, the moment everything changed. The moment I ran straight into the arms of the man I was meant to find, and as I drifted into dreams, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear, I knew that every tear I'd cried that night had been worth it. Every moment of fear, every second of pain, all of it had led me here, to this man, to this love, to this life, home, at last.